In January 2024, Dricus du Plessis beat Sean Strickland to become the middleweight champion of the world. But that fight was close enough and controversial enough for them to book the rematch. UFC 312 is getting a little bit of flack for the lackluster main card, but I promise you, if you zoom out and you look at that card as a whole, we have some really fun matchups and some really promising up-and-coming fighters. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC 312 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and bets. Before I do that, let me make a tremendous announcement. If you didn't know, we have a premium membership over on the website. If you go to WeWantPicks.com, you pay freaking $10 for an entire month. You unlock everything you can need heading into a fight week. That includes picks, bets, and tools. The latest addition to that tool bag is the Fight Simulator. This is a custom-coded tool that we developed from the ground up. What it does is it takes data points from all across the board. You get everything from biometrics, striking data, grappling data, fight history. Then we layer on the implied probability from the sportsbooks. Then we layer on the DraftKings fantasy scoring and ownership projections. And all of that information sits into the database, where then the Fight Simulator takes the two fighters and it simulates the fights using that data. It simulates every single fight 100,000 times. Then the output from those 100,000 simulations can be used to build a DraftKings fantasy lineup, to place some bets, to dial in your picks. The Fight Simulator is included in premium membership. It's an addition. It's not a tier. We didn't add something and then raise the price. We didn't add something and change the membership. Your membership remains exactly the same. If you're a premium member right now, if you paid $10 last week for UFC Saudi Arabia, not only do you have a full month worth of access, you now have access to the Fight Simulator. A full tutorial is on the YouTube channel. You can go check that out now, see how to use it, see where it's most beneficial. But the Fight Simulator is alive, it is ready to go, and it is the latest addition to what already was the greatest value in this space. You can unlock the Fight Simulator. You can unlock the DraftKings ownership projections, the picks, the bets, and the tools right now at WeWantPicks.com. Here's a look at the UFC Saudi Arabia DraftKings ownership projections. We quite literally have the best ownership projections on planet Earth. If you play DraftKings Fantasy, you know how wildly important these are. If you don't, I actually recommend you do. It's a ton of fun. You can have a good time doing it. You don't even need to spend money if you don't want to. Our DraftKings ownership projections are better than the giant DFS companies. We have a $10 a month membership where these are included. If you wanted to go over to a Roto Grinders, you'd be paying $100 a month. The ownership projections wouldn't be as good as ours, and neither would the rest of the tools. Another very important component to premium membership is a safety parlay. The safety parlay is the beacon of stability in this space. I spent the last minute or so talking about tools. We give you everything you need to find your own spots. We also give you our spots. I share where I'm betting with the premium members. Jacob shares where he's betting with the premium members. BetSam shares where he's betting with the premium members. One single bet that I place is called the safety parlay. The safety parlay is the beacon of stability. Imagine putting a parlay up on the board every single week for every single UFC event. A sport where we have minus 1,200 favorites losing. A sport where it's unpredictable, but we have the safety parlay. I've hit 11 of the last 13 safety parlays. This one single bet has a 54% ROI. You can unlock the safety parlay for UFC 312 and 3 other events right now for $10 an entire month. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. We have a whole slew of tools. One of them is the Data Analyzer. The Fight Simulator simulates fights 100,000 times. The Data Analyzer gives you what you need to try to find your own spots, including tape study. If you like to do your own research, and I don't want to have anybody else's picks and bets, that's fine. Use the Data Analyzer. It will lead you to the specific fight tape. You click a button, the video pops up. You can do your own research. We also have more than just this beautiful face and that little ginger kid that I work with. You also have others. We actually have the New Zealand market on lock. This gentleman screaming for no reason whatsoever is BetSam. BetSam has had an incredible year so far with his picks and bets. We also have Artem, who's not only breaking down UFC fight cards, but all the regional shows as well. And then we have an artificial intelligence that is picking fights based solely off of historical data, and then a human being interpreting those picks and converting them to bets. Every single thing that I just mentioned, and everything I didn't mention, because if these intros go just a little too long, everybody starts crying, can be unlocked right now for $10. It's not $10 for this, and then there's an add-on and DFS and bets. It's $10 for everything. This is the Costco model. I am building the greatest value that this space has ever seen, and I am keeping it at $10 forever. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member, unlock the greatest tool set you will ever see right now for an entire month. Here's a look at the next month. We're about to hit a 16-fight stretch. You're going to get UFC 312 and then 3 fight nights. And not all of them are in the Apex. The UFC is doing a concerted effort to get out of the Apex this year, and I guarantee that benefits every single one of us. And finally, everything we do is available inside of the app. We have an app. The app is 100% free. You can love us, you can hate us, you could be premium, you could not be, but you could still download that app. Just go to the App Store, search We Want Picks, download the app. It has every single thing that you can access from the website directly, and then push notifications. That is by far the biggest benefit of this application. Finally, no more premium promos. But UFC 312 is a pay-per-view, and what do we do for pay-per-views? We film vlogs. We hang out for the day, we cook some good food, we have some people over, we react to the fights live. We also have a mail day inside of the vlogs where things that you guys send us get opened. The letters get read. We just got this letter from Thomas Rinker. So this will be opened and this will be read on the vlog. If you want to send something for the vlog, if you're a small business, want to showcase a product, you want to write a letter, the address is P.O. Box 406 in Prosper, Texas, 75078. Let's go ahead and break down this card. I will tell you right now, this is a tricky card. I looked at this fight card. I went through the entire slate, and almost every single fight, I was shocked when I saw the odds. My process is break down the fights. I pull up the list of fights, then I get my notes and spreadsheet ready. I lay out all the fights, who they're fighting, what happened in their last fight, all that information. Then I do the tape study, I do the research, I make my pick. Then, once I have all the picks on the card, then I go to the sports book and I check to see what the odds are. And most of the time, like, all right, it aligns. Not on this card. There's about 7 fights on this card where I picked somebody and then I went to the odds and I was like, whoa, this person's the underdog? This is one of them. And I'm going to walk you through. We have Hyun Park, and we're just going to, this other dude is Nam, that's it. Hyun Park taking on Tumendemberel. And that's not the name, but the reality is I'm over here in the Western world with somewhat of a Northeast accent, living in Texas with an incredibly fast-speaking cadence and a tongue that's probably too big for his mouth. No shot I get these names correct first try. It's impossible. So we're just going to push through. And we got Hyun Park. Very slick grappler. His game plan is pretty straightforward. He's going to plot forward, find the openings, and get it to the ground. He is a finisher. He will snatch things up very quickly, but he's also patient on the feet before finding those openings and closing the distance. He's a dangerous guy, but the more tape you watch, the more you see how uncomfortable he can be on the feet. He is coming off that finish win over Shannon Ross about a year ago, but I promise you, Shannon Ross is no longer in the UFC. He's taking on Nyam. Nyam's a powerful striker. He's got a wide base. He bombs punches. He uses really long step-in jabs to close the distance, and then he just starts swinging wild. He has no problem with a dirty pocket fight, but he can be hit, and he doesn't have the best striking defense. He's also moving forward, and he's always doing something. He is coming up. He's coming off his first professional loss where he did show some power, some finishing ability, but he was also too aggressive. For example, in the first round, he had a nice little rally. It looked like he was going to be able to steal that round, make something happen, and then he blew it, just absolutely chasing a finish. And it's another tricky situation because I was shocked to see that Nyam was a plus 235 underdog. To me, these two are pretty evenly matched. We have a grappler versus a more well-rounded guy. Nyam's probably the more dangerous of the two, at least with his hands, and Hyun Park needs to get this to the ground to have some success. I really want to pick Nyam here. I was shocked to see what the odds are because Nyam is very dangerous. He's very aggressive, and he's not a quitter. He has dog in him. Park is a solid grappler, but his takedowns are not great. This line's going to have you thinking that Park is an established UFC vet that has beat people at this level, and Nyam is just trying to find his footing, and that's not what we have. The reality is that neither of these guys has a UFC win over an active fighter, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and right off the rip, the opening fight of the card, I'm picking Nyam. I think he's more dangerous. I think he's more active, and I think if he just stays in Hyun Park's face, bombing away, pushing forward, he can frustrate him. The concern will obviously be if he just gets taken down, held on his back, taken down, held on his back, and then we have sort of a desperate grappling type situation. But right off the rip, we're going with the dog. We got a little bit more of a confident breakdown here, but I want to tell you right now, this is not the same person twice. Kody Steele is on the left, Rongzhu is on the right. It's not the same I know this looks like the exact same person, but it's not. These are two different human beings. The matchup is actually wild. They literally look identical. And not only do they look the same, they're completely different nationalities from completely different parts of the world. One of these dudes' neck is nuts, but these guys look identical. They don't fight the same, though, because we got Kody Steele. Kody Steele has a little bit of notoriety. That might be a name that you've heard before. And he's not Lexington's cousin, but he is somebody that was on the Contender Series and was being hyped up because he was going to fight Quillan Otani. Otani is the first person to ever beat Alex Pereira. And so they threw him on the Contender Series. They were trying to build another rivalry. And this dude got so scared, he literally left. He was in the locker room, wrapping hands, getting ready. He left. He's like, I'm not doing this. And he left. So Kody Steele basically got a fake win. His opponent quit and walked out the door. They rebooked him, and then he obviously had some success in that rebooking. Style-wise, Cody's a good grappler. He's got big takedowns. He's got chain wrestling. He has relentless pressure. He does a really good job creating scrambles, making stuff happen. His striking isn't excellent. Isn't was the key word there. But he has solid fundamentals. And it is sort of a solid, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a solid balance between distance striking and pocket striking. He looks good in both. He's perfectly fine inside close distance. He'll let his hands go a little bit and then look to get it to the ground. Or at distance, he'll pot shot his way until he can find the opening and shoot a takedown. He's taking on Rongzhu. Rongzhu's a good striker. He does pick his shots well, and he's got some pretty good power. When Zhu's marching forward and dictating the pace, he's a killer. But when he's being backed up, when he's reacting, he can end up a step behind. He does have a negative striking differential, as you can see here in some of the greatest graphics you'll ever see in this space. And that's crazy because he averages more than 2 takedowns per fight. He has a 62% takedown accuracy. So if you connect some dots there, that essentially means that Rongzhu spends the majority of the fights on the ground, and he still manages to get outstruck. He is coming off that TKO loss to Chris Padilla, where he threw big and he threw often. And I think between these two, Rongzhu's the more dangerous fighter here, but Cody's the better overall fighter, and I think he gets it done. Should be able to avoid the big power, get the takedowns. I think it's just constant shots and reshots, and I think that's going to be the difference here. As long as Kody doesn't get sucked into a firefight, he should have a successful UFC debut here. Obviously, anytime we get a UFC debut, it's a little nerve-wracking, but I think Kody Steele's looking pretty good to get this win. That takes us to another UFC debut and prospect. We got Quillan Salkilld. With the wild mustache, he looks like a fireman who doesn't have a shift for a couple of days. And he's taking on Anshul Jubli. Quillan Salkilld, I don't know if it's not Salkilld. And it's not Salkilld. I think the D is silent. And I watched the tape, obviously. He's never been in the UFC, so I can't run off memory. And I don't remember anybody pronouncing the D. The problem is he's also working internationally. So we're getting accents in the mix. So we're going to say Quillan Salkilld. We got Quillan. Good striker. He uses kicks really well. He manages range. He works the body. As soon as you're comfortable striking with him, he's going to lower his level and shoot. He's overall pretty well-rounded. He can fight at distance or inside the pocket. He is perfectly fine with an ugly fight, but at times, he can chase a finish instead of settling in. And as we've mentioned many times before with other fighters, that can kind of get you out of sorts and you can lose a position. All of a sudden, you're on bottom when you were in complete control on top. He's taking on Anshul Jubli. He's a well-rounded fighter overall. He has solid striking, solid grappling. He does a good job exploding into his takedown attempts. So even if he doesn't have a perfect shot, he was fast enough that he got to the hips, and he doesn't necessarily give you time to sprawl. He's not amazing anywhere, but he's good everywhere. The fight IQ is there as well. He's got enough cardio to continue pushing forward the whole time. He is coming off that TKO loss to Mike Breeden, where Mike was literally barking in his face before he finished him. And listen, Jubli on paper has the tools. He's fast. He's a technical striker. He's accurate. He has everything that you can teach, but he doesn't have the things you cannot teach, like grit and guts. He's going to have a little bit of trouble with Quillan, who's aggressive, who's gritty, who's dirty. Physically, he actually might be dirty, but I mean dirty as in a fight. He doesn't care. He will grind and he will push forward. And I think Jubli is going to wilt under that pressure the same way he did when Mike Breeden was literally barking at him like a junkyard dog. Quillan is going to be the pick here. I'm very confident in that, and I think he's safe to bet despite being a UFC debut. And that takes us to another UFC debut in Jonathan Micallef. He's taking on UFC vet Kevin Jousset, and that wasn't supposed to rhyme. I didn't plan that, but we're going to roll with it. I'm essentially Rome. I'm a lyrical genius. But we got Jonathan Micallef. This guy's an okay striker. He's a good wrestler, though. Striking is basic, solid 1-2s, some distance closing to get the takedowns on the ground. He's not looking to finish, but he does have really good pressure and control. He's not particularly dangerous, but he is solid, and he can do a really good job controlling the pace, getting it to where he wants to be, getting you to the ground, and then just chilling there. He's taking on Kevin Jousset. This guy's a stocky striker. He plots forward. He does have some low hands, and his volume isn't great. But when he finally closes that distance, he likes to work you to the cage for control and try to get some takedowns. He's insanely patient in everything he does, and he uses his size to slow things down. His takedowns are slow, his striking is slow, but he is really big for this weight class. He's very strong, and he knows how to use that size to his advantage. He's a very high-level judo practitioner who mostly uses it for defense, and we saw some of that in his last fight against Bryan Battle, where yes, he was finished, and it was at home, and it was embarrassing for the French people as a whole. But his takedown defense looked really, really good in that fight. Kevin Jousset was just finished, but he honestly looked decent. He looked pretty good leading up into that. The hips, the takedown defense were all great. It was ultimately the unrelenting pressure from Bryan Battle that gave him a hard time. And I think the takedown defense is going to hold up here. I think he gets it done. Jonathan doesn't have that same crazy pressure that Bryan Battle brought to Kevin. And even if he gets a takedown, I see Kevin being able to work really well. Kevin should be sound enough to avoid any trouble on the ground. Kevin's going to be the better striker on the feet. He's certainly the bigger guy. He's got the UFC experience. He has the judo. I think Kevin gets it done. I think he's safe. Pretty medium in the pick here. He's not my most confident pick, but on this card, he's one of the more confident picks. So again, minus 215, not the worst odds you're going to see today. Then we have one of the more talked about fights on this card, and neither one of these people have ever fought in the UFC before. We have two guys making their UFC debuts, and instead of people talking about the matchup, which is short notice on one hand, everybody's talking about the fighters' corners. We had Colby Thicknesse. His corner is going to be Aleksandre Volkanovski, and he's taking on Aleksandre Topuria. And it doesn't take a genius to look at that last name and realize that his brother is Ilia Topuria. So all anybody wants to talk about is the cornering of these two, which I don't really understand, especially because Topuria and Volkanovski have been very friendly to each other. They're both normal, kind people, and I guarantee they'll shake hands and everything's fine. But for some reason, people desperate to go viral with a meme are just slapping those two people together. Oh my God, these corners have fought before. It makes no sense to me. But either way, we do have a couple of UFC debuts here. Colby Thicknesse is stepping up on short notice, about a week's worth. He's a pretty well-rounded guy. Notably, he is one of Alex Volkanovski's training partners. He's been in that camp for quite some time, despite looking like he's 13 years old. He's mostly a grappler. He uses striking to close the distance and move to a clinch. Once he gets to the cage, he's going to try to work some takedowns. His striking is very loose. He's got low hands. He bounces around like crazy, but he can bring some power because of how he leaps into his punches and he throws heavy. He is pretty wide. He can be hittable. Overall, a solid fighter, but he's better grappler than he is a striker. He's taking on Aleksandre Topuria. He is Ilia Topuria's older brother. They look alike. They kind of fight alike too. Like his brother, he's a high-level wrestler who has been wrestling since he was a small child. Striking-wise, he's powerful and he's creative. He isn't as technical as you would like, but he makes up for clean technique with raw power and pressure. He is willing to engage and he will come forward. He's a high-paced guy who fights with a chip on his shoulder. You will see that there's a lone loss on his record, but that can be taken with a grain of salt because not only was that 10 years ago, that was up 2 weight classes. This is a great matchup. We do have a few plot lines here. the weird coach's corner thing, if anybody cares about that. But we have Ilia Topuria's brother. This is going to be a cool fight. I'm looking forward to it. It should be really fun. Both of these guys will get after it. I wish we had proper promotion here. And this, honestly, should have been like a Contender Series main event. This would be a phenomenal Contender Series main event. But here we are. They went ahead. They threw him on a pay-per-view because the pay-per-view is in Australia, and they wanted to get a matchup like that. Aleksandre Topuria's original opponent was actually the favorite, and now this line is full flipped, A, because of short notice, and B, because Colby's just not that dangerous. Right now, Aleksandre is a solid favorite here at almost 4-1. Talent-wise, that seems accurate. If you factor in the long layoffs between his fights, if you factor in all of those components, it can be a little tricky with those odds, but I do think Aleksandre wins. He's a better striker. He's a better wrestler. Topuria is going to be the pick here. I'm excited for this fight. This is a cool fight, and I'm excited to see what we're talking about after it. Then we have what might be a fraud check, what might be a busted prospect. We'll find out in this fight. But we have Wang, who famously just got finished as a minus 1,200 favorite. And anytime I promote the safety parlay, I say it's the beacon of stability in a very unpredictable sport to bet on. And every time I say that, there's always some Cheeto-chested couch genius that tells me UFC's easy to bet on. Is it? I would say there are more tremendous favorites in MMA that lose than any other sport. Show me a sport where minus 1,200 favorites are losing every other month. We just watched Peyton Talbot absolutely shit the bed. And on that card, we had a minus 1,200, a minus 600, and a minus 400 lose. Wang was minus 1,200 before she was dropped and submitted. And this little rant is just to show you that picking fights is crazy. Betting fights is a science. Nobody's perfect. And that's because these fighters do wild shit. We just watched Mike Davis pull guard in the first 13 seconds of a fight. And you could watch that fight and afterwards be like, I knew Frost was going to win, bro. I'm so good at this, bro. I knew Frost was going to win. Did you know Mike Davis was going to pull guard, or did you think that Frost was just going to be able to dance around and have better striking? Because those are two different things. If you have watched any, this is a Mike Davis rant, and it is what it is. I'm sorry. Fast forward if you got a problem with it. If you watch any Mike Davis fight, every single one of his professional or amateur fights leading up to that, what do you see? A guy that comes forward, throws hands with nice technique, and then offensively shoots takedowns. He has 14 takedowns in the UFC. Never once did that dude pull guard. Ever. Then he goes out there. In the first 13 seconds, pulls guard. Doesn't work out for him. Gets back to his feet. All right. Tried some weird Hail Mary bullshit. He pulls guard again. This guy pulled guard 2 times in 90 seconds. This sport is wild. We can't fight for these people. We can watch the tape. We can do the breakdown. We can use what we've seen to come to educated decisions. What we cannot do is predict the ridiculousness. And that whole rant was basically to say that Wang lost when she was a huge favorite and she was set up for success in her last fight. And I'm positive that Bruna Brasil is going to be the consensus underdog of the week. I am positive these plus 300 line is going to tighten and tighten and tighten. And I'm also positive everybody's going to be like, but she's at Fighting Nerds and that gym's unbelievable. Mayra Bueno Silva was at Fighting Nerds and she just got broke in half and quit. Switching gyms doesn't make you great. Those gyms have wild success because of the people who founded it. The core group of people that built that gym from nothing are why there's success. Just showing up there doesn't immediately make you better. There's a little insight into the pick here. But we got Wang, professional kickboxer. She made the leap into MMA. And all you got to do is search her name, and one of the top 3 results is going to be her beating Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing. She fights exactly how you would expect a decorated kickboxer to fight. She's got incredible striking, she's got power, she's got speed, and she can defend takedowns. You're going to see that she was just submitted, and you're going to assume she was taken down. She's just a striker. That is not what happened. It's even worse than that. She was dropped and then got her neck snatched. So it is unfortunate she lost in that fight where she was set up for success, but things happen. And she has taken on Bruna Brasil. Great looking. Bruna Brasil. She is a solid striker, incredible power. She's very creative on her feet. She throws everything from Superman punches to spinning back kicks. She likes to march forward the whole time, throwing her entire arsenal at people. She does have some takedowns, but they're not great. They're very BJJ-esque, meaning she'll shoot and then she'll like step over and pull you over her knee and stuff like that. And they're not bad takedowns, but anybody with some really good takedown defense will back their ass up to the fence, widen their base, work the hands, and get out of there. The problem, though, is Bruna Brasil's striking defense is not great. You can see the striking differential right there. She is hit with 3.49 significant strikes per minute, and that is far more than she's hitting other people. She is coming off of that win over Molly McCann, and she was a dog in that fight too, and she looked pretty good. The question here isn't who's going to win this fight. The question is, what are we doing? What the hell are we doing where Wang is a minus 400 favorite after getting finished as a minus 1,200 favorite? If she was taken down in her last fight and then submitted, I actually would think, okay, maybe these odds aren't so terrible because Bruna's takedowns aren't so good. But she was dropped and then submitted. So while I am going to pick Wang here because I think she's just too good of a striker and I don't think Bruna's takedowns offensively are good enough, I'm going to pick Wang here. I don't think she should be a minus 400 favorite, so I'm not betting on her. What I do imagine is going to happen is what I mentioned earlier. People are going to look at this. Wang sucks. Fraud check. Bruna Brasil. She's at Fighting Nerds. And they're just going to bet it down. And then if we get Wang at much better odds than this, then maybe I'll make something happen. I do think she wins this fight. I don't know if she's going to finish Bruna, but I think if she stuffs a few takedowns, lands clean a few times, that loss might be the best thing that ever happened to her. She was coming out with the Joker mask, doing the bang thing, flipping the card. Maybe that was sort of a reality check, like, listen, B, you're not quite ready for all that. And now she'll be a little more dialed in than she was in her last fight. But either way, I am picking Wang here. I do think she gets it done. And I would advise, while Bruna Brasil is pretty good, I would advise against going crazy, being like, duh, bro, I'm going to add her. What I don't want to see is all the comments, oh, I was going to get paid $400 million in a 9,000 leg parlay, and Bruna Brasil lost. What the hell are you doing with a plus 300 in a long tail parlay? Guys, I get it. Here's a stat for you. I don't know why there's so many ranting right now. Here's a stat for you. This is a genuine statistic. Close to. I'm remembering the numbers. 90% of bets at sportsbooks are for $5 and less to make $1,000 or more. That means all your little parlays, little as in just a couple of bucks, who cares? It's $5, which I get the logic. All of those with those huge long shot parlays are losing because 80% of the sportsbook revenue comes from parlays. So 90% of all bets are long tail parlays for giant payouts, and 80% of their revenue comes from parlays. I'm not saying parlays are sucker bets, but after you get past the fourth leg, what are you doing? The likelihood of that hitting is, which is why the odds are what they are. Don't throw giant plus 300 dogs in a long tail parlay. Then we have a very interesting matchup. We got Tom Nolan taking on Viacheslav Borshev. This is when we start to hit the part of the card where it's getting harder and harder to pick, and this is one of those fights. Tom Nolan is a slight dog here, and I get it, but he is taking on an older gentleman who's losing his footing. Tom Nolan, long, lean striker. He is accurate. He is technical, but he has no problem getting into a brawl. Outside of the one loss on his record, he's had a pretty good chin. You can see more than one regional fight of him just eating giant overhands, and then he keeps coming forward. He has tons of pressure, tons of volume, tons of power. Striking defense isn't great, though. He does get hit quite a bit. The takedown defense also isn't great. He is coming off the decision win over Alex Reyes, who, if you remember, was coming back after like a 42-year layoff and a blood disease. Taking on Viacheslav Borshev. He's a fantastic striker. He has a legitimate professional kickboxing career, and he had that before he transitioned to MMA. He's got a great jab. He's got solid power, fantastic kicks. He does have a low 36% takedown defense, and he has been taken down 29 times in 7 UFC fights. He's coming off that close win over punching bag James Yontop, where it was clear that Viacheslav was the better striker, but he's just not dangerous anymore. This is a tough spot. This is a spot where the dog can make a lot of sense. Without question, Viacheslav is the better striker. Objectively, he's the better striker. He's the freaking team alpha male striking coach, for Christ's sake. But he's also about 56 years old in fight years, and it's starting to show. He's not as durable as he used to be. He's not as dangerous as he once was. I think my pick and my bet here are going to be two different things. I think I'm going to pick the better striker, at least as far as technique is concerned, because this is probably going to be a mostly striking matchup. So that's going to be Viacheslav. But the bet might be win inside the distance decision, no action on Tom. Essentially what that means is if Tom Nolan finishes Viacheslav, who was just dropped by Chase Hooper 2 fights ago, I'll get paid. If Tom Nolan loses a decision because Viacheslav is just a little cleaner, a little faster, you can't get to him, well, then I'll get a full refund on that bet. So when those props drop, I'll take a look. If you have the app, you'll get a push notification on the app. If you don't have the app, download it. It's 100% free to download. Just search We Want Picks in the App Store. Tom Nolan's going to be an interesting dog on this card, because we're going to find out a lot about Viacheslav and what his future looks like here. Then we got Jack Jenkins taking on Gabriel Santos. Another fight with some pretty interesting odds here. I don't think Jack Jenkins should be a 2-to-1 dog, but here he is. Jack Jenkins is a solid striker. He's got some real power. He's got good takedown defense. He pressures forward. He backs you up against the cage. And then from there, he's going to look for control. Overall, powerful guy. He has multiple ways to win a fight. People like to talk about the striking, which I get. He's a good striker. But he has 5 fights in the UFC with 9 takedowns total. So he's a pretty well-rounded guy. The takedown defense, however, can be questionable, especially when you saw he got taken down twice by Herbert Trash Burns, taking on Gabriel Santos. Gabriel Santos is an aggressive fighter. He's going to charge forward. He's going to bomb 1-2s. And then when you're all the way backed up to the cage, he's going to work in his takedowns. So then he can get you to the ground. And once he's there, he's going to ground and pound or look for a submission. He'll alternate between the two. He's not a technical striker, but he throws fast. He throws with power. He can be hittable on his side, but his striking is really there just to overwhelm you so he can shoot the takedowns. He does have some Muay Thai experience, but it's not at a high level. He's coming off that dominant win over Yiza, where his striking looked great, but actually his cardio did not. This card is going to be a wild one. This is going to be an absolutely insane card. Almost every fight I'm breaking down from this point forward is very close, and almost none of them have close odds. Gabriel Santos, more than a 2-to-1 favorite, and that line's moving. Just 3 days ago, he was minus 180. And I have no idea what he's done to warrant those wide of odds and the movement. The only dots that I could possibly connect here are that Herbert Burns took down Jack. Herbert Burns sucks. Gabriel's got good takedowns. Those are the only dots that I can connect. Outside of that, Jake's a solid striker. He has a handful of actual UFC wins. The takedowns do scare me, though. If you can't control where the fight goes, and if he gets taken down a few times, he's going to get frustrated. He's going to stop committing to the strikes, and it's going to become more and more of a problem. I'm going to pick Gabriel Santos here because I am worried about the takedowns. My recommendation here is live bet. This seems like a great live bet spot, especially when the odds are this wide. You'll know in the first minute how this fight's going to go. If Jack immediately stuffs a takedown, you're probably good. But all of a sudden, he's backed up to the cage, fighting for his life. Gabriel's all gas, no brakes. Then Jack's going to lose this fight. So this is what I would do. Whatever your sports book is, whether if you have an app or if you have to use a website, I would be ready to go with the live odds, hovering, just waiting. And then as soon as you have your decision, bang, click that button because those things start to move fast. What else moves fast is my money to you. If you go to WeWantPicks.com/bets and you sign up with any one of our affiliate partners, we send you $50 as a thank you. It's affiliate marketing. You're going to use the link. You're going to sign up. Make a deposit. They're going to pay me. I'm going to slice off some of that money, and I'm going to send it to you. And I said it moves fast. It takes about, I don't know, a couple days to a week. Everything has to flow through the systems. But if you do go to WeWantPicks.com/bets, you'll see some sports books. You'll see some links. Sign up there. They'll give you some free money bonuses, but then we will give you actual money. We'll send it PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. That's WeWantPicks.com/bets. If you're not a premium member, you should become one. We're constantly adding. People like to hate on the sales pitch, right? We're in a weird world where people don't like success and they hate being told that something is good. So anytime I do a full-blown sales pitch and talk about how great premium is, there's always some weirdo who hates the fact that I'm trying to make a living and feed my family by offering an incredible service. What that person doesn't factor in is not only have we built something in the service of premium membership, we also continue to add to it, and we've never touched the price. It's been $10 from day one. And day one, it was phenomenal value. Now we're at day, whatever the hell 3 years is worth of days, and we've got 4,600 premium members, and we have even more services, tools, picks, bets, and analysts. We have 5 people. One of them's not a human being. It's a robot picking fights and giving you bets based off of their picks. We have multiple tools. We have a fight simulator. We have an artificial intelligence. We have a tape study index. We have the data analyzer, the DraftKings optimizer. You get Underdog, prize. I mean, everything that you get is insane at $10. We continue to add to it. We continue to enhance. The fight simulator is the latest edition. We literally have a person building tools, coding tools from the ground up, and then web guy Josh is sitting with him for hours on end being like, what's this? What's that? Let's tweak this. Let's tweak that. And then running it through all sorts of testing and controls. We got to fix this. We got to do that. Now it's ready for public consumption. Fight Simulator simulates fights based off a whole slew of data 100,000 times and then spits out the outcomes that you can use to build DraftKings fantasy lineups or just straight up picks and bets. We also have straight bets. Some people like to do their own research, want the tools. Other people just want to be told what to do. While I always recommend doing your own research, we will share with you what we are doing with our own money. Every bet that I put on the board is a bet that I place with my money, the money that I use to feed my family. Jakey Boy, same thing. Bet Sam, same thing. One of the bets that I put on the board that I place every week with my money is the safety parlay. Safety parlay remains the beacon of stability. Safety parlay has hit 11 of the last 13. And funny enough, I posted, I'm very proud of the safety parlay. How could I not be? And I posted the results, and I did 11 and then this line 13 slash this 13. And somebody's like, bro, 11 and 13 is not something to brag about. The slash is 11 of 13, meaning 11 wins and 2 losses. The dash is a record. If I did 11-13, that sucks. But 11 of 13, spectacular. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member. Unlock the safety parlay. You'll get all my stuff, Jacob's stuff. You'll get Bet Sam. Bet Sam was up big at UFC Saudi Arabia. He was up big at UFC 311. He's on quite a run. Nice little addition to the We Want Picks crew. And then Artem is just quietly behind the scenes picking perfect cards on the regional shows. He's going to give you UFC picks, and he picks at a spectacular accuracy. And then all of a sudden, there's a random PFL card that Artem got 10 of 11 fights correct, or even a perfect card. Check it all out. Freaking WeWantPicks.com. And if you do want to send something for the vlogs, we'll be filming a full vlog this weekend, hanging out with the boys, cooking some good food, watching the fights, and opening the mail. If you want to send a letter, you want to send something, you're promoting a small business, whatever it is, We Want Picks, P.O. Box 406, Prosper, Texas, 75078. Then we have a very interesting main card for UFC 312. This is about where people start to get pissed. This is where you're seeing the screenshots on Twitter like, bro, this might be the worst UFC I've ever seen in my entire life. And I agree, it may not be the greatest fight card as far as name recognition is concerned, but how many times have we seen fight cards with spectacular names that just sucked? We've got a really good main event, a really good co-main event, and then the rest of these matchups are pretty fun, not to mention the undercard can be an absolute banger. I'm looking forward to this card. I'm looking forward to all the fight cards. Anytime we got fights on a Saturday is a good Saturday. If you're about to hate on UFC 312, just rewind a few weeks where we didn't have fights for 3 weeks and tell me what was better. Nothing or something. And the something kicks off with Jake Matthews taking on Francisco Prado. Another wild situation as far as the odds are concerned. We got Jake Matthews. He is a well-rounded guy. He does have some solid wrestling. Good grappling, nice variety of strikes. He likes to work angles well. He's got no problem mixing up body shots and then head shots. He's averaging about 2 takedowns per fight. He's got solid striking differential of 3-2. He's got some real power in his hands. He is coming off the decision win over Philip Rowe, where he outstruck the person that many people said would be the better striker. He's taking on Francisco Prado. Francisco Prado is a power striker. He comes in hot. Big looping strikes, head kicks. He's got decent Muay Thai, a good clinch, insane power, but he also keeps his head straight up in the air and he can be touched. He can grapple as well, and while it's not his plan A, he can shoot doubles. He can use his power to scoop you up and slam you down. He's incredibly explosive, incredibly dangerous, but he does tend to slow down. He's coming off that loss to Daniel Zellhuber where he was just running forward and chasing with power. And I honestly think there might be some sort of bug in the sportsbook systems. Like somebody fat-fingered some line of code or something, because I'm pretty sure I'm looking at Jake Matthews at minus 215 and Francisco Prado at 185. So there's got to be a typo somewhere. There has to be. Because while I do think Jake Matthews can win this fight, these odds are disrespectful as shit. Prado is good and he's dangerous. For Jake to win this fight, he has to avoid chaos on the feet. He's got to shoot takedowns. When Prado charges chaotically, he's got to lower his level. Bang. Hit him right in the gut with his shoulder and run right through him. If he engages in a war, Prado's going to put him out. Prado's going to win that fight. Jake is going to be the pick here because I do think he has more cardio and he's more durable between the two. But I can't touch it at these odds. I can't touch it. Oh, because Jake Matthews wasn't finished a few fights ago, now he's great? I can't touch these odds. That's crazy. Philip Rose, an unreliable dude. You can't use that win as your gauge for for Jake Matthews should be a 2-1 favorite. I do think he wins, only because Francisco Prado slows down. And I think Jake's durable enough to weather a storm. If Francisco Prado does not slow down, long night for Jakey boy. Then we got Jimmy Crute taking on Rodolfo Bellato. First of all, I bet my life that our Discord, the We Want Picks Discord, is going to be spamming pictures of this absolute bag of mashed potato slob with my face on that body. I'm positive. I've already seen it, and they're going to do it again. I'm going to be Rodolfo Bellato for the next week, all over Discord, tagging Twitter, all that bullshit. I'm positive one of them in the Discord has like some AI whatever where they're putting our faces on things and it's actually looking like real good. And Bellato's like not that far off. Like he's the Wish version of me. Like, and I'm not quite the Wish version of Ben Affleck. What's like close? I'm like an Ben Affleck, but at 85%. And then Rodolfo Bellato is me at 20%. Okay, did you get that pecking order? We have gorgeous man Ben Affleck, pretty gorgeous dude in Angelo, and then bridge troll Rodolfo, but they're going to put Angelo's face on it, which will bring him up a little bit, but it's not going to do him a ton of favors. So keep a lookout in the Discord for that. I'm positive that's going to be sent my way. But we got Jimmy Crute. Solid wrestler, averages about 5 takedowns per fight. What I always like to point out, anytime you get somebody that has that high of a takedown number, it means they can't hold people down. For you to get 5 takedowns means somebody stood up on you 4 times, or even with the round in between, they stood up on you a couple of times. He is not just a pure grappler. He's got some decent striking skills. Overall, pretty well-rounded. He is coming back after a full-blown retirement a year and a half ago where he just got smacked around a little bit and cried and took his shoes off. Or his gloves off. Shoes is a wrestling thing. Taking on Rodolfo Bellato. Gorgeous, heavy-handed grappler who is going to come forward. He is going to bomb away, and he is going to stick around for a slug fight. But he's a grappler, and ultimately he wants to get these fights to the ground. His takedowns could use a little bit of work, but once he gets to the ground, he's got good control, and he will chase submissions. You'll see that he's got 2 losses in his career. Both of them are to Vitor Petrino. And while Vitor was fraud-checked in his last couple of fights, obviously he's a big, athletic, strong guy. He's coming off that finish win over Ihor Peteria where he looked stiff, he looked lumbering, he looked slow, and overall he looked pretty bad. And this is a weird situation because, as I mentioned, Jimmy Crute retired after a 4-fight winless skid where he looked worse and worse after every fight. Now he's coming back and he's saying, I'm too good at this to walk away. I disagree. You've not been very good, but I do think he's good enough to beat Bellato. The issue becomes the layoff and the retirement. I have no idea if Jimmy Crute is all in and taking his career seriously or if he's just popping up because it's a pay-per-view at home and there's a little bit of money. Jimmy is going to be the pick mostly because of how bad Bellato looked in his last fight, but we've got another fight with some interesting odds here. These aren't quite as wide as some of the previous ones. I'm going to go Jimmy Crute, going with the dog, but this is going to be an interesting fight to watch on paper because if you remember years ago, We had a situation where we had a gentleman who left the fight game, Al Iaquinta. And then the UFC came to Madison Square Garden. The guy was a real estate agent. UFC came to Madison Square Garden. He's like, I'm back. And it was just a fight at Madison Square Garden. It was just to do with the checkbox. I fought at Madison Square Garden. He got knocked out. Jimmy Crute could be in a similar situation, so it's hard to trust him. Then we have what will be a fun featured fight, but certainly not a featured fight that matters at all in the scheme of things or for the division. We got Justin Tafa taking on Thaleson Teixeira. Thaleson Teixeira, UFC debut in a featured fight. A UFC debut who's relatively untested, but he is a beast of a human being. He's 6'7" or 6'8", depending on where you look up his height. He's making his second attempt at a UFC debut. He was supposed to fight at UFC 310, but then he was injured, so he had to pull out. If you do your tape study and you take it at face value, it looks like Thaleson is an absolute killer. He's massive, he's fast, he's powerful, he's athletic for his size, and he seems to use that athleticism well. But if you look at the fights a little closer and you dig into the opponents, he has not fought the highest level of competition. One of his opponents, the first guy I clicked on, is 4-16. Another one of his wins was under modified rules, which means it wasn't even an MMA fight, but it somehow hit his official record. So on the surface, Thaleson is a beast because of the size, the athleticism, what he's able to do. But the jury is still out if he's actually good or not, and we will find out here because he's actually fighting a UFC fighter. And that fighter is Justin Tafa, a heavyweight striker. He's got big power. He's got a great chin. When he gets his kick going, he's got great kicks as well. He could chop down a tree. He's got 0 takedowns in the UFC, and up until his last fight, he had never been taken down. You can just swing and bang with Tafa, but that's going to be a problem for you. You can have some success, though, if you pot shot and you dance around and you jab him up and you use speed and athleticism. We also saw you could have some success if you go all in on the wrestling. He's coming off that loss to Carl Williams where he was taken down 7 times. Not touching this fight. On one hand, I do want to go Thaleson because Tafa seems to be getting worse with age. He is hard-headed. He may be able to survive early and then take over with power later, or he may get danced on and just have his feet in mud while Thaleson's running around the outside just popping him up. Thaleson's the more athletic, the more well-rounded, but Tafa's head is made out of Legos, and I don't know if Thaleson's going to be able to knock him out. I don't know if Thaleson's going to wrestle. I don't know how comfortable he is dancing around on the outside. There's too many unknowns here, but I do think these odds are correct. I think Thaleson should be the slight favorite, given the fact that he is just an absolute giant, savage human being. Taleson's going to be the pick. Let's see what these props are. Maybe a sneaky good play is going to be over 1.5. We'll see what happens when all the props drop. We'll see if we can find a spot, but money line's tricky with a guy like Thaleson who has no real solid foundation to go off of when picking this fight. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. This is a spectacular fight. It is the best fight to make in this division. We got Weili Zhang taking on Tatiana Suarez for the strawweight championship of the world. And this line is tightening, and I would not be surprised if Tatiana was the favorite come fight night. And I get it. While she doesn't have anywhere near the experience at any level, let alone the highest level of Weili, what she does have is incredible wrestling. Tatiana Suarez is very inactive. She's dealt with a lot of very serious injuries, but she's got a great resume. She submitted former champion Alexa Grasso and former champion Carla Esparza. The two of them have 5 title wins between them. Tatiana's a dominant wrestler. She averages more than 6 takedowns per fight. She has 7 wins in the UFC with a total of 27 takedowns. Her striking is just okay, but her wrestling is so high level, no one's been able to fully stop it. But we're going to find out because she's taking on Weili Zhang, the 6-time strawweight champion of the world. And I'm saying 6 times because 6 times she either won the belt or defended the belt. Typically, when you say multiple time, you're talking about when someone lost it and earned it back. But I'm not doing it that way. That way seems pretty foolish to do. So you could say 2-time because she lost the belt and earned it back. But I'm saying 6 times because that's how many times she went into a title fight and left with the belt. She is a striker who has evolved into a true mixed martial artist. She's got very real power in her hands. She lands an impressive almost 6 significant strikes per minute. She has added wrestling to her game plan with 25 takedowns in her UFC career. She is coming off that title defense win over Yan Jinan, where she did get in a little bit of trouble, but overall dominated. And now finally, we have a fight with close odds that should be close. My gut, which is, it's gut's not the right word. Just picture like a brick wall. It's rock solid. So my brick wall is telling me to go with Weili. She's only a win or two away from being the absolute GOAT in this division, but her takedown defense is vulnerable. She's been taken down 6 times in her last 5 fights and only has a 50% takedown defense. But that's where it ends. Everything else in this fight goes to Weili. Weili will be far better striking. She'll be far better cardio. She has much more champion experience. Very good offensive wrestling. I have to pick Weili here. Tatiana is very good, but I don't see her becoming the champion. And I wouldn't be surprised if Weili lost the first 2 rounds and then took over 3, 4, and 5 to steal the fight from behind. This is a great fight. I expect fireworks. Weili is going to be the pick, but I'm going to keep an eye out for a sneaky takedown prop. We might get, at the end of the week, when all the sports books start dropping the significant strike prop bets and the takedown prop bets, we might get something weird like Weili at a 1 takedown. I think Weili is going to wrestle the wrestler. I think she shoots. And I think she's going to come forward. That's what Georges St-Pierre had so much success doing early in his career. He would wrestle the wrestlers. He didn't care if you had better credentials than him. He out-wrestled Josh Koscheck, Division I national champion. Like, he out-wrestled so many people that were much better wrestlers than him. And this could be that. Instead of waiting for Tatiana, because if Tatiana gets to your hips, you're getting taken down. So instead of waiting for that, get to Tatiana's hips. Have her playing defense. It's easier to finish a takedown than it is to defend one. I'm going to pick Weili here, but this is a great matchup. I love this fight, and I'm looking forward to it. And then we have the rematch. One of the angriest rematches we're going to get this year. When I say angry, I'm not talking about these 2 fighters. I'm talking about you. You remember last year when Jon Anik said UFC fans are the worst? And everybody came for him after that? He said UFC fans are the worst because of this fight. It was Sean Strickland, obviously, and Dricus du Plessis. Sean Strickland lost that fight. The Strickland fans insisted it was a robbery and that he won. Jon Anik, all he said was, I agree. I think Dricus won that fight. And the Sean Strickland fans came for his throat. You suck. You're a bum. You're the worst. They came at him. And that's when he was like, this is nuts. You can't even have an opinion in this space. UFC fans are the worst. And then people attacked him again. And then he had to apologize because for him to say UFC fans are the worst is not like the best look given his job. But this fight is obviously drawing on people's emotions. The Sean Strickland loyalists refuse to believe that Sean Strickland lost that first fight. I'll tell you, watching it live, it felt like Sean lost. Dricus was coming forward, doing what he does. Swinging wild, looking sloppy as hell, grinding, getting takedowns, and making stuff happen. But then you look at the stats, and you can then justify, Sean won, he landed more significant strikes. So it was a close enough fight for us to have a healthy debate. It was a close enough fight to run the rematch. They both have gotten wins since then, and I think this fight makes sense. So we got Dricus du Plessis, everybody's favorite sloppy fighter. Even Dricus himself laughs at how sloppy he can be. We got the armchair experts showing his video clips of his fights, being like, I love the way he sets you up and steps on the outside and draws you in. And Dricus will watch that analysis laughing, being like, I didn't do any of that shit. I just come forward and swing as hard as I can. And I'm not making this up. There's a clip of Dricus basically making fun of somebody that's analyzing his fight and pretending at how technical and beautiful it all is. When Dricus is like, that's not what this was. I just go. And that's how Dricus fights. He just goes. He's an absolute brute who has extra chromosome strength. He's got cardio for days, even if it looks like he's exhausting. He's got power in his hands. He'll shoot takedowns. He will do anything he wants to do. None of it's clean. None of it makes sense, but all of it's working for him. He's coming off that win over Israel Adesanya, where he basically big brothered him. He was getting pieced up. He was getting smacked around a little bit, kept coming forward, didn't care, got the takedowns, finished him. He's taking on Sean Strickland in this rematch. Sean Strickland's been the exact same guy the majority of his career. At 170, he had beautiful hair, and he still had some hope in his eyes. Now at 185, he hates the world. Everything sucks. Everybody's a loser. Kids don't have penises anymore. This world sucks. He shaved his head, and now he just stands there when he fights. This is a Sean Strickland fight. That's a Sean Strickland fight. He's the first person to go out there and say, I'm going to die on this shit. We're going to die out there. And then what does he do? Jabs over and over and over and over. Hides behind a Philly shell. And I'm giving a hard time. I do look forward to Sean Strickland fights because what I am positive is that he's going to fight. He's going to fight. Is it going to be an exciting fight? That depends on who's on the other side. Sean Strickland doesn't come at you. He waits for you to come to him. He is just going to walk forward slowly, but it's like walk, pop, 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 over and over and over. He's not going to overcommit. He's not looking for a knockout. He's just marching forward, sticking behind that Philly shell, a meat and potatoes kind of guy, a blue-collar striker. He was the most controversial fighter in the UFC before Bryce Mitchell started talking crazy. Sean Strickland is a talented guy with a 77% takedown defense. That number was higher before he fought Dricus, and I imagine it's going to be lower after he fights him again. I think this is more of the same. I think it's a continuation from the first fight, and if anything, I think it's going to be worse, meaning I think Dricus is going to be better than he was the first time around. He's defended the belt since then. He's been the champion since then. The only real factor here that could change things is the fact that Sean Strickland is not the champion. He's the challenger, and Dricus is the champion. Sometimes we see champions fighting to keep the belt. And maybe before, Sean was just couldn't believe in himself. He couldn't believe that he was the champion. He was doing everything possible to hold on to that belt. So he wasn't committing like crazy. He wasn't moving forward. He wasn't attacking. And now that he's not the champ and the belt is there within grasp, maybe he will come forward, be far more aggressive, and have more success than he did in the first fight. This is a good fight. I'm glad they're rebooking it. I'm still going to pick Dricus here, literally because he just finds ways to win. He's never the better fighter. He wasn't more technical than Robert Whittaker. He wasn't even a better striker than Sean Strickland, and he wasn't a better striker than Israel Adesanya. But he puts it all together. He keeps winning, and at a certain point, you just got to go with the wins. Dricus is going to be the pick. If you're going to attack me for it because you think Sean won the first time, he's going to win again, that's weird, man. That's weird. That's weird energy. We love this sport. Let's talk about the sport that we all love so much. We'll find out after how it all goes down, but I think the first one was close enough to run it back, so let's run it back. Guys, that's the breakdown. Now that you watched the breakdown, pull up your phone, search We Want Picks in your app store, and download the app. We spent an enormous amount of money and time to get the app. What we do at the end of every year, we put out a premium member survey to the thousands of premium members and say, what would you like us to do next year? Last year, the number one resounding, overwhelming thing was an app. So we delivered on the app. Download it. Search We Want Picks in your app store. Inside the app, you'll have access to everything, including the brand new Fight Simulator. Brand new Fight Simulator takes data points from all over the place. Everything from implied probability to DraftKings fantasy scoring to striking, wrestling, grappling, reversals. We have biometrics, all that data. And then it simulates the fights 100,000 times, and then it gives you the outputs of those simulations. Fight Simulator works inside of the app. The data analyzer works inside of the app. This gives you the ability to zero in on specific statistics for each fighter. You can use those stats. You can watch the tape study. You can deep dive anywhere you want to go to find prop bets, to find your own picks, to find your own bets. You have access to the line movement tracker. This is going to give you the opening odds, the current odds of win probability, and the line movement for every fighter on every card. You're going to have access to the Prop Hunter, a curated set of data specifically designed to help you find prop bets. You're going to have access to everybody and everything, including this guy screaming. That's Bet Sam. His bets have been absolutely rock solid. And that's Artem with the disheveled hair and the hoodie. And somebody wanted to complain, I don't like the way you talk to people. I like Artem, and how could you talk to him like that? First of all, you don't have friends. You don't play with your friends. You don't joke around with your friends. Get a life. I'm going to joke around with these two. And Artem knows what the hell his hair looks like. Unlock everything that we do. Tools, picks, bets, breakdowns, artificial intelligence, everything. You're going to get 4 events. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Guys, you've changed my life. I'm hoping to change yours. Good luck on this card. This is a wild card. Good luck.